Welcome to Whisperwood Stories. Today, we read 2 stories from r/nosleep. Let's begin. Our first story is from Negativity. I went caving back in 2016. What I saw in it made me quit forever. Hi, my name is Jordan. I'm 22 years old. I work a simple 9-to-5 job. I enjoy going caving and exploring abandoned places. This is what made me quit. I had woken up from my sleep after having a long day beforehand. I decided I should take a shower. I figured a nice warm shower would be quite refreshing. It felt nice to feel the warm water trickle down my skin. In the middle of shampooing my hair, I get a call from my fiancé. "Hey baby, I was calling to see if you wanted anything from the store," she said in a calm and soothing voice. Her voice makes me feel like I'm floating. I lost myself in my thoughts. "Baby?" she said, snapping me back into reality. No, thanks. I'm going caving again." "Okay, honey. Have fun." She ended the call shortly after that. I quickly dried off and went to my laptop to search for locations of caves. Spore Mountain Mine. After seeing that it was available to explore, I quickly got dressed and packed all of my gear into my car. I was almost there when my car began to quake and squeak. I rapidly made a quick stop to check what was wrong with my car. The oil was low, my brakes were not working properly, and my car was overheating. I made the decision to stop and sleep in my car for the night. Fortunately, I had brought the necessary items for an occasion just like this. Though it was cramped, as it usually is in a small 2010 Toyota, I drifted quickly into sleep. Not too long after falling asleep, I woke up. I groggily looked around for my phone. No battery flashed the screen. When I looked out of my window, maybe 100 yards away, I saw a figure. It stood maybe 8 or 9 feet tall. Then an ear-piercing screech rang through the air. I could feel my heart thumping against the cage that was my ribs. I covered my ears, but the screaming was still so loud. Suddenly, the screaming stopped. I looked up. The figure was gone and nowhere to be seen. I looked around frantically. I then caught a glimpse of something behind my shoulder, and there it was, glaring into my eyes. Its own eyes were 2 sunken pits, as black as the void. Even with no eyes, I could feel it staring into my soul with the hatred so deep that the hatred would only stop if I was slain by its hand. Just as it broke through the glass, I woke up. I woke up from the horrible nightmare in a cold sweat. My entire body was trembling with fear. It was just a dream, I told myself. Soon after, I resumed the trip to the mine after I had put myself back together. Once I got there, I had to hike the rest of the way. During the time of the hike, I felt like I was being watched, but I could never tell where or what it was that was watching me. Finally, I arrived at the entrance of the cave. The dark void of the cave was intimidating. I felt like eyes were peering back at me while I looked into the cave. I searched my bag for a headlamp and hastily equipped it onto my forehead and started my exploration. After maybe 30 minutes, I began to hear strange noises that sounded like faint whispering coming from the darkest turns of the cave. I simply brushed it off as my head tricking me. After all, after being in the dark for a while, your head plays tricks on you. I sniffed the air. It smelled foul, like something was rotting away. Then I smelled metal. It was like pennies scattered across the floor. Then I stumbled upon the carcass of a coyote. It was skinned almost perfectly. The body of the predator was lying in a puddle of its own blood. I should have seen this as a red flag. Maybe someone just skinned it for its hide, I thought to myself. In the corner of my eye, I saw two faint orbs glowing in the corner. I turned to them, but once I did, it vanished. Where the eye should have been, I found a book. Its pages were torn and tattered. I sat down and began to read it. July 14th, 2008. I've been running ever since I saw that thing. My legs feel numb and my heart is beating so loud I think that it can hear me. Please help. If you see it, run. It has a skull for a head. Black liquid seeps from its jaws. Moss grows on its rotting body. July 21st, 2008. It's been a week. I'm lost. This cave is like a maze. I can hear it walking and running and sniffing the air from me. The whispering is getting louder and closer. It's cold. I have no food and I've used the last of my water. It's so dark. July 22nd, 2008. I've run into a slab with some kind of words in a language I can't read. It was buried for some reason. The air is heavy. I miss my wife, my son, my brother. Please tell them I love them. My name is Micah. I shut the book. I was left in shock and terror. I looked up. It was running at me, its footsteps clacking. It let out a shrill noise that made my blood curdle. The tips of my fingers began to numb. I was sprinting as fast as my legs could handle. My lungs felt as if they were going to collapse. I ran 3 miles to my car without stopping, never slowing down. I could feel it breathing on the back of my neck. I could hear its pattering footsteps only a few feet behind my own. When I got into my car, I didn't hesitate to drive away as fast as possible. My foot never left the gas pedal. I could barely keep the steering wheel still as my shaking hands wouldn't stop trembling. I got home and locked every door and window I could think of. I woke up my fiancée. "What's wrong, babe?" she said with a worried tone. She could clearly see something was wrong. "Call the police," I said. "Why? What's going on?" I heard a window shattering. She immediately began dialing 911. "It's down here." It began banging and scratching on the bedroom door, screaming with pure rage. Then the banging stopped. Then the door broke open. I ran, darting to the bathroom. My fiancée wasn't so lucky. When the door to the bathroom closed, I could hear her screaming in agony. I smelled the scent of blood. I heard it splat on the wood floor. I could hear the rattle in her bones as they popped. I heard several more cracks and pops when she stopped screaming. Then I saw the blue and red shine through the cracks of the curtains. I heard another window break. The police found me curled into a tight ball, like a baby. And that's why I quit caving forever. Please, never go caving. Stay out of that mine, because it still wants me to feel the pain that she did. Our last story is from Traditional Ad. I was asked to watch over a strange house for the weekend. They left me a strange list of rules. I am in my last year of high school. Now, most of my friends and classmates by now have already gotten some kind of job, whether that's working at a fast food place or even helping their own parents with a little business they set up themselves. I was one of the few who just couldn't manage to get a job. Every application I sent out was merely received with the usual copy and paste reply that summed up to, "You weren't chosen." But I had to get money some way. That's what led me to start making and setting up flyers for a sort of house-sitting service. As old school as it seemed, a lot of my neighbors were usually going away on various trips, and very few of them leave their houses alone. So they'd usually call up a friend or someone they knew to look after things. To be honest, I wasn't expecting to really get any offers for that reason. That was, until I got a call from a friend of mine. To keep it brief, they called because he and his parents were going out of town for the Easter weekend, and their usual house sitter had recently gotten sick. They almost canceled the trip until they saw my flyer. I accepted the offer and was told to go to his house early in the morning on Friday to give me the basic rundown on what to do and how to take care of things. Thankfully, they were bringing their dog with them, so I wouldn't need to worry about that. I got to the house around 6:30 in the morning on Friday. My friend was already waiting for me at the front door of the house to give me the standard tour. To provide a little detail, the house itself was a standard, one-story suburban home. From the front door, there was the living room, which held a reclining, sand-colored couch facing a large flat-screen TV. From the living room, straight ahead from the front door, led into the kitchen to the immediate right and a large dining room ahead. The kitchen had a door that led into a laundry room, and the dining room led to 3 other areas. Midway through the dining room, there was an alcove that had 3 doors, or 4 if you counted the towel closet beside the door straight ahead from the alcove entrance. That door led to the guest bedroom, and to the left was a room filled with various creative supplies and materials. To the right was the den, which had a second TV and a computer within. To the left of that was my friend's room, and to the right was his parents' room, or the master bedroom as others would call it. After the tour and a basic rundown on what needed to be done, my friend waved me goodbye before heading off with his parents. I decided to check over each room before heading away myself. They had told me to come by each morning and each evening to check over the house and tidy things up if needed. They left me their phone number in case anything went wrong, although I wasn't expecting anything to really happen. As I was checking the kitchen, my eyes caught a glimpse of what seemed to be an envelope of some kind resting in the middle of the granite-countered island at the center of the kitchen. I picked it up, assuming that it was just some mail from their other family members, until I saw what was written on the front. In black pen ink, it read, "Additional house rules." I thought to myself that there might be some other things that they may be used to with their other usual house sitter that they wanted me to do as well. I opened up the envelope and unfolded the paper inside. I was not expecting what I was about to read. On the paper, it read as follows. Additional house rules. Rule 1. Arrive and enter the house at the exact same time each morning and evening, no exceptions. Rule 2. Make sure any and all doors of any kind are closed. If you find a door opened and don't remember opening it, close it, and avoid entering the room for at least 5 minutes. Rule 3. If anyone calls the house phone past 7 p.m., do not answer it, even if it is our number. Rule 4. Keep the alcove light and the master bedroom lights on while you are inside the house. Other lights are optional to keep on. However, if any of the lights you turned on happen to turn off for any reason, go to the alcove or master bedroom until the lights turn on again. Rule 5. During your evening check, do not leave the house at any time between 7 and 7:30. Past those times, you may leave at any time. Rule 6. Close the blinds to the backyard before doing anything else during the evening. Do not look out into the backyard for any reason. These rules read to me more like some kind of safety manual more than one standard rule set. I honestly thought that it was some kind of joke that my friend wanted to play on me before he had left. Regardless, I kept the list and I headed out for the day. I arrived around 6:45 that night for the evening check. I entered the house and began looking around for anything out of place, as instructed. The house was brightly lit, as I had to turn every light on so I could see. All doors were closed, so I had to open them to check inside. It wasn't until I reached my friend's room when I started noticing anything unusual. The door to his room was cracked open, unlike the other doors of the house so far. As I approached the room, I began to hear what sounded like something scratching at the door. And before I got within arm's reach of the door, the light in that room flickered very slightly before abruptly shutting off. I began to back away from the door, just as it began to slowly creak open. I backed into the door leading to the master bedroom, and I quickly bolted in, closing the door behind me. The creaking of my friend's room door stopped, and for a good 10 seconds, it was dead silent. The only sound was that of my own slow breathing. Then I began to hear slow-moving footsteps coming from the room. They slowly approached the door to the master bedroom, of which I was right behind. I looked under the door in hopes that I could see who or what it was, but there was nothing. I saw only a shadow stretching slightly into the room from under the door, as if something was there, yet my eyes saw absolutely nothing. I then began to hear the scratching I had heard earlier, now coming from behind the master bedroom door. I had no idea what to do. What could I even do? Whatever it was, I couldn't see it. Eventually, after about 5 long minutes, the scratching abruptly stopped. The shadow under the door was gone. I hesitated before cracking the door open to peek outside of the room. My friend's room was lit up again, and there was the door wide open. I checked the door I was cowering behind, and there was no evidence that anything had been there, let alone had been scratching at the door. I checked the time on my phone. It read 7:05 p.m. I stepped out into the dining room and noticed that the blinds to the backyard weren't closed. I went over to close them, but not before catching a glimpse of the outside. Out on the backyard was a tall, animalistic shadowed figure. Its appearance almost looked like an 8-foot deer standing on its back legs. It turned its gaze towards me. On what I assume is its face were 3 bright purple eyes staring right at me. I took no time in closing the blinds the moment it looked back at me, hoping I would be safe from whatever it was that was out there. My phone read 7:17 p.m. And that was when I heard the home phone ring. I was about to go over and answer it before I remembered one of the additional rules. Rule 3. If anyone calls the house phone past 7 p.m., do not answer it, even if it is our number. At this point, I was willing to follow these rules to a letter. I already had a few close calls due to me nearly not following these strange guidelines, so I let the phone ring on a few more times before it went straight to voicemail, and I let out a sigh of relief. My phone read 7:31 p.m. I decided to start heading home. I was shaken by what I had seen, and I had no clue if it was all some kind of nightmare. But it wasn't a nightmare. It was very real. I hardly got any sleep that night, and by morning, I was running late for the morning check. I drove down to the house and went up to the front door. I was about to unlock the door before I heard scratching behind it. I froze up, not moving. I remembered the first rule. Arrive and enter at the same time each morning and evening. I decided to back away to my car. I wasn't sure what was behind the door, but I didn't want to find out. I got into my car and began to pull away. Just before I started driving away from the entrance, though, I saw those 3 purple eyes from the front window of the house, gazing at me just as I drove off. That evening, I arrived around 6:45 to the side of my friend's car in the driveway. Confused, I got out, walked up to the front door, and rang the doorbell. After a minute, my friend answered the door and greeted me with his usual smile. "You guys are back early?" I spoke, confused. "Ah, right," my friend answered. "Our family couldn't all make it to my grandparents' Easter dinner, so we just had to head home early." I nodded as he handed me the money I was promised. He wished me a good night and was about to close the door before I remembered the note. "By the way," I began to ask, "what was this note about? What's up with your house?" He looked at me, confused for a second, before he got a look of realization in his eyes. He chuckled to himself before he answered, "I didn't really expect you to take that little joke seriously." "What do you mean?" I replied. "I just left that there to mess with you, man." He laughed. "None of that was anything you need to worry about." Thank you for listening to Whisperwood Stories. If you enjoyed, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe down below. Do you have a story that you'd like me to read here? Consider sending it to whisperwoodsubmissions@gmail.com. Thank you again for listening, and be sure to check out the original Reddit posts. Don't let the shadows get too close.